My mother-in-law hired a PI to follow me for 3 months, planted her jewelry in my purse to frame me as a thief, and created fake photos of me cheating to show at family dinner. So I gave everyone DNA tests for Christmas and exposed that she'd had an affair with her husband's brother. But when I got pregnant, she texted, "You took my family, now I'll take what grows inside you," and we had to flee the state at 3 a.m. with our newborn. My mother-in-law has always believed I was beneath her son. She's called me a gold digger at my birthday dinner, during which I paid for her meal, thrown a tantrum over how expensive my $2,500 engagement ring was. She's literally replaced my work clothes with Walmart knockoffs, then used it as proof I was out for my husband's money when I noticed the difference. But when her son continued loving me and told her that was never gonna change, she got this look in her eye. Next week, I started noticing the same car everywhere I went, outside my office, at the gym, following me to the grocery store. When I told my husband I was being followed, he brushed it off as paranoia. Then one day I came home to find a manila folder on my coffee table. Private investigator reports documenting 3 months of my life, every person I talked to, every place I went, all twisted to look suspicious. The PI noted my male coworker bought me coffee so clearly we were having an affair. My trips to the bank were evidence of hidden accounts. She wanted me to find these reports. The jewelry incident happened at Easter dinner. I was helping clear the table when MIL shrieked that her grandmother's bracelet was missing. She made a big show of searching before announcing we should check purses. The bracelet was in mine, of course. I watched my husband's face change when she pulled it out. That flicker of doubt broke something in me. MIL graciously announced she wouldn't press charges because we all make mistakes, while the family stared at me like I was trash. 2 weeks later, she invited me to lunch. I thought maybe she wanted to apologize, but instead she slid a check across the table. $50,000. When I didn't respond, she wrote a new one. $75,000, then $100,000. Every woman has a price, she said. Name yours. She told me she'd done this successfully before. I wasn't even the prettiest gold digger her son had dated, apparently. The final straw came at a family dinner in September. Mill had been suspiciously sweet for 2 weeks, which should have warned me. She suggested we all share photos from the recent family beach trip, connected her phone to the TV. The first few pictures were normal, then suddenly there I was kissing another man. Multiple photos of me with this stranger at restaurants and hotels I'd never been to. The shadows were wrong and the metadata would have proved they were fake, but nobody cared about that while staring at the images on the giant screen. She gave this whole speech about protecting her son and following her maternal instincts. Turned out she'd already shown these photos to my husband's co-workers and friends. She'd been protecting him from the truth about his cheating wife. I tried to defend myself, but she'd primed everyone perfectly. The walk to my car while the family whispered behind me was the longest of my life. My husband asked for space to think on the drive home. That's when I realized this had always been her plan. She would never stop because destroying me was part of her identity now. Sitting in my car, watching him walk into our house without me, I made a decision. If she wanted to play with family secrets, then we'd play. I hired my own investigator to dig into her past. Took him 2 months to find the gold mine. Her husband's nephew looked nothing like his supposed father, but had her distinctive nose and her exact green eyes. The timeline was interesting too. She'd given birth to her first child 6 months prematurely, except the cousin was 6 months older than that. The affair that produced him happened while her husband was on a business trip. I spent months playing the defeated daughter-in-law, apologized for the misunderstanding with the photos, thanked her for accepting me back into the family. Then at Thanksgiving, I suggested a fun family activity for Christmas. Those ancestry DNA tests were so popular, and wouldn't it be amazing to trace the family bloodline? I played right into her ego about how important family heritage was. She couldn't refuse without looking suspicious. Christmas morning, I handed out beautifully wrapped 23andMe kits to everyone. Mael forced a smile, but I could see the panic in her eyes. The next 2 months were delicious. The family group chat buzzed with excitement as people got their results, everyone sharing their ancestry percentages and finding distant relatives. Then the bomb dropped. The cousin got his results showing a half-sibling match with my husband. My father-in-law stared at the screen trying to process what he was seeing. The other family members compared results and confirmed the match. The math was undeniable. Mill tried to say the test was wrong, but science doesn't lie like she does. Watching her perfect family image crumble while she desperately tried to explain was poetic justice. Her husband moved out within a week. The divorce papers cited adultery and fraud. The family split, with most cutting her off for her decades of hypocrisy. My husband apologized endlessly for doubting me. Family dinners moved to our house where she wasn't welcome. I thought I'd won. Then my birth control failed despite being careful. The positive pregnancy test came with flowers at my office. The card read, "Congratulations, grandmother knows." An untraceable text followed, "You took my family. Now I'll take what grows inside you and raise it right. Blood is blood." She'd been playing a longer game than I imagined. I stared at the card, my hands trembling. The office suddenly felt too small, too exposed. My coworker Victoria noticed my face and rushed over, but I waved her away and grabbed my purse. I needed to get home. Now the drive was a blur of checking mirrors and taking random turns. Every car behind me could be one of her people. At home, I deadbolted the door and pulled all the curtains closed. My husband found me sitting on the bathroom floor 20 minutes later, pregnancy test still clutched in my hand. He knelt beside me and I showed him the text. His face went through several emotions before settling on rage. He called his mother immediately, but she didn't answer. Then his phone buzzed with a message from her. "Congratulations on the baby. Can't wait to be involved every step of the way." That night we installed new locks and a security system. My husband took time off work to stay with me. We changed our routines, avoided predictable patterns, but she was always one step ahead. Baby items started arriving at our door with no return address. A crib, a high chair, all top of the line, all impossible to trace. The psychological warfare escalated quickly. She somehow got my work email and sent congratulations to my entire office, announcing my pregnancy before I'd even seen a doctor. My boss pulled me aside to discuss maternity leave while I was still processing everything. She'd stolen my moment to share the news on my own terms. terms. Then came the medical interference. I arrived at my first prenatal appointment to find she'd already called, claiming to be me, trying to access my medical information. The receptionist looked confused when I checked in, saying I'd just called to cancel. We spent an hour verifying my identity and setting up password protection on my file. My husband confronted her at her apartment. I waited in the car, watching through the window as they argued. She stood there smiling, denying everything. When he returned, his hands were shaking. She'd decorated an entire nursery in her spare room, had already picked out names, told him she'd been consulting with lawyers about grandparent rights. The family was split on how to handle her. Some relatives thought we were overreacting to a grandmother's excitement. Others had seen her destroy enough lives to know better. My father-in-law, still reeling from the divorce, offered to help however he could. He'd found years of hidden credit cards and secret accounts. She had resources we hadn't imagined. Week by week, her tactics grew bolder. She showed up at my workplace with baby gifts, forcing me to accept them in front of colleagues or look ungrateful. She joined every pregnancy group and forum I did, always commenting right after me. When I switched to different groups, she found those too. The breaking point came during my second trimester. I'd been careful, so careful, but somehow she learned about my doctor appointment. As I sat in the waiting room, she walked in and sat down beside me, just smiled and picked up a parenting magazine. When they called my name, she stood up too. The nurse looked confused as we both approached. My mother-in-law sweetly explained she was here to support her daughter-in-law. I firmly told them she wasn't allowed in my appointment. She made a scene about being excluded from her grandchild's life, loud enough for the entire waiting room to hear. Security had to escort her out while she cried about just wanting to be involved. That night, my husband and I made a plan. If she wanted to escalate, we'd be ready. We started documenting everything. Every text, every unwanted gift, every appearance. We installed cameras around our property, changed all our passwords, put alerts on our credit reports, but she adapted too. The gifts started coming to my husband's work instead. She befriended our neighbors, always asking about me, expressing concern for my health. She volunteered at the hospital where I planned to deliver, got herself on the auxiliary board. Every move we made, she countered. My sister-in-law, Victoria, became an unexpected ally. She'd watched her mother operate for years and knew her patterns. She warned us about the next phase. My mother-in-law would try to isolate me from my support system. Sure enough, anonymous letters started arriving at my friends' houses, warning them about my supposed mental instability during pregnancy. Most friends saw through it, but some grew distant. My book club suddenly had scheduling conflicts whenever I could attend. I wonder what's really driving this mother-in-law to put so much time and money into this whole thing. The private investigator, the fake photos, now baby stuff. That's a lot of effort just because she doesn't like her daughter-in-law. My yoga instructor mentioned someone had called concerned about me exercising while pregnant. Piece by piece, she was trying to shrink my world until only she remained. The stress was affecting my health. My doctor noted my blood pressure was elevated. I couldn't sleep, jumping at every sound. My husband installed motion sensors and more cameras, but technology couldn't stop psychological warfare. She was too smart to do anything we could legally prove as harassment. Then we discovered her newest plan through pure accident. CB, my husband's cousin and her secret son, had grown disgusted with her after learning the truth. He reached out, wanting to help. He'd overheard her on the phone with someone, discussing nursing homes and power of attorney. She was researching how to have me declared incompetent due to pregnancy-related mental health issues. The revelation about her competency scheme sent ice through my veins. I immediately scheduled an appointment with my obstetrician to document my mental health status. My husband accompanied me to every visit, creating a paper trail of my stability and rational decision-making. The doctor noted everything in my file, understanding the gravity of the situation after I explained the harassment pattern. CB proved invaluable in the following weeks. He started visiting his mother regularly, pretending to reconcile while actually gathering intelligence. Through him, we learned she'd been consulting with a psychiatrist friend about postpartum psychosis symptoms, clearly planning to use this angle after the birth. She'd even researched which judges in our area were most sympathetic to grandparent rights cases. My husband's work schedule became erratic as he tried to balance protecting me with maintaining our income. His mother had started showing up at his office during important meetings, forcing him to choose between his career and dealing with her disruptions. His boss, initially understanding, grew frustrated with the constant interruptions. The financial pressure added another layer of stress to our already strained situation. Victoria suggested we needed to go on the offensive rather than just defending. She'd been documenting her mother's behavior for years, keeping records of manipulation tactics used against other family members. Together, we compiled a comprehensive file showing a pattern of harassment spanning decades. Former girlfriends my husband had lost touch with suddenly made sense. They'd all been driven away by similar campaigns. The 20th week of my pregnancy brought a new development. I woke to find our mailbox stuffed with brochures for adoption agencies. The message was clear. She wanted me to doubt my ability to be a mother. My husband installed a locking mailbox that same day, but the psychological damage was already done. Every normal pregnancy worry became amplified, wondering if she was right about my fitness as a parent. Our neighbors became unwitting pawns in her game. She'd befriended the elderly couple next door, bringing them groceries and checking on them daily. They thought she was wonderful, not realizing she was pumping them for information about our routines. When packages arrived, she'd intercept them under the guise of being helpful, always knowing exactly what we'd ordered and when. My work performance suffered as I struggled to concentrate. Projects that normally took hours stretched into days as I constantly checked security footage on my phone. My supervisor expressed concern, which only fed into my mother-in-law's narrative about my declining mental state. I forced myself to compartmentalize, refusing to give her ammunition for her competency claims. CB discovered her next move through a carelessly open laptop. She'd been corresponding with a family law attorney about establishing a paper trail for future custody proceedings. Every gift she'd sent, every attempt to be involved, it was all being documented as evidence of her commitment to the baby's welfare. Our refusal to accept her involvement was being twisted into paranoid behavior on our part. The baby shower became a battlefield. child. My friends organized a small gathering, trying to create a normal moment in the chaos. Somehow, she discovered the location and time. She didn't crash the party. That would have been too obvious. Instead, she sent an elaborate gift basket that arrived during the opening of presents, filled with items far more expensive than anything my friends had given. The card read, "With love from Grandma," in her distinctive handwriting. My husband started sleeping poorly, dark circles becoming permanent fixtures under his eyes. He installed an app on his phone connected to all our security cameras, checking it obsessively throughout the night. Our relationship strained under the constant vigilance. Date nights became strategy sessions. Romantic moments were interrupted by security alerts. She was destroying our marriage without ever laying a hand on either of us. Victoria warned us about the holiday season approaching. Her mother always escalated during family gatherings, using the pressure of tradition and witnesses to force compliance. Thanksgiving loomed like a storm cloud. Family members who'd remained neutral started reaching out, suggesting we should consider reconciliation for the sake of the baby. The pressure mounted from all sides. I developed a support network of other women who'd dealt with toxic in-laws. Their stories provided both comfort and horror. Some had eventually found peace, while others had spent years in ongoing battles. They taught me documentation techniques and legal protections I hadn't known existed. One woman shared how her mother-in-law had successfully gained partial custody by portraying herself as the stable alternative to a hysterical mother. My husband's cousin revealed more disturbing information during his reconnaissance visits. His mother had been attending grandparent support groups, portraying herself as a victim of an ungrateful daughter-in-law who was denying her access to her grandchild. She'd built a network of sympathetic allies who had no idea about her true nature. Some had even offered to serve as character witnesses if she pursued legal action. The stress manifested physically as my pregnancy progressed. Headaches became constant companions. Sleep, when it came, was plagued by nightmares of her taking my baby. My doctor prescribed mild anxiety medications safe for pregnancy, which I knew she'd use against me if she ever found out. Every medical decision became weighted with potential legal ramifications. We discovered she'd been volunteering at the hospital's maternity ward for months, ingratiating herself with the staff. She'd become especially close with one nurse who worked in the delivery unit, sharing stories about her difficult daughter-in-law who was keeping her from her grandchild. The realization that she might have allies present during my most vulnerable moments sent me into a panic spiral that took hours to calm. My husband confronted his extended family, laying out the full scope of her harassment. Some relatives finally understood the severity, while others remained convinced we were overreacting. The family schism deepened, with holiday plans becoming a minefield of negotiations and hurt feelings. She played the victim perfectly, a grandmother just wanting to love her grandchild. Financial pressure mounted as security measures drained our savings. The nursery we dreamed of creating became a fortress, with window locks and camera angles taking precedence over decoration. Every dollar spent on protection was money not saved for our child's future. She'd found a way to rob our baby before they were even born. CB's intelligence gathering revealed her most insidious plan yet. She'd been researching infant care courses and certifications, building a resume that would make her appear to be the more qualified caregiver. She'd even started a part-time job at a daycare center, gaining professional childcare experience. Every move was calculated to position herself as the better option should custody ever be questioned. My body changed as the pregnancy advanced, but I couldn't enjoy the miracle of creation. Each kick reminded me of what she wanted to steal. Shopping for baby clothes became reconnaissance missions, checking for her car in parking lots, avoiding predictable stores. The joy of preparing for our child was tainted by constant hypervigilance. Work became my only respite, but even that was under threat. She'd started sending flowers to my office weekly, signed, "From your loving mother-in-law." Colleagues thought it was sweet, not understanding the psychological torture each bouquet represented. I couldn't refuse them without seeming ungrateful, couldn't explain without sounding paranoid. The 8th month brought a terrifying escalation. I was home alone when the doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw a woman I didn't recognize holding official-looking documents. She identified herself as a social worker responding to a concern about an at-risk pregnancy. Someone had reported that I was showing signs of severe mental distress and might be a danger to my unborn child. My hands shook as I called my husband, who rushed home from work. The social worker was professional but thorough, inspecting our home and asking probing questions about my mental health history. She found nothing concerning, but the visit itself became part of an official record. My mother-in-law had found a way to involve authorities without directly implicating herself. Victoria helped us trace the complaint through her connections. It had been made anonymously through a tip line, impossible to prove who'd called. The social worker's report cleared us, but the investigation would remain in the system. Any future complaints would be taken more seriously with this precedent. She'd laid groundwork for future attacks while maintaining plausible deniability. Social workers at the door checking on your mental health? Mother-in-law's really playing chess while everyone else is stuck on checkers, though using child services as pawns seems like a new low even for her playbook. My husband's relationship with his mother reached a breaking point. He drove to her apartment one evening, returning hours later emotionally drained. She'd spent the entire time playing victim, crying about missing her grandchild's development, showing him the nursery she'd prepared. She'd even bought a car seat for her vehicle, just in case of emergencies. Her delusion ran so deep that she genuinely seemed to believe she was the wronged party. Sleep deprivation took its toll as my due date approached. I'd wake multiple times nightly, checking locks and cameras. My husband started sleeping in shifts, one of us always alert. The nursery remained half-finished as we focused on security over aesthetics. What should have been a time of joyful anticipation became a siege mentality. She found ways around every barrier we erected. When we blocked her calls, she used burner phones. When we changed our routines, she adapted her surveillance. When we thought we'd found safe spaces, she'd infiltrate those too. Her resources seemed endless. relentless, her determination absolute. Fighting her was like battling smoke. She'd dissipate only to reform elsewhere. The baby shower gifts she'd sent haunted our home. We couldn't use them, knowing they were tools of manipulation, but donating them felt like admitting defeat. They sat in our garage, expensive reminders of her presence. Each designer outfit and premium toy represented another attempt to stake her claim on our child. My support system, already strained, began to crack. Friends grew tired of the drama, unable to understand why we couldn't just work things out with her. Family members who'd initially supported us started suggesting compromise. The isolation she'd orchestrated was working. Even those who believed us grew exhausted by the constant crisis mode. CB warned us she was escalating her legal preparations. She'd hired a prominent family law attorney known for aggressive grandparent rights cases. Her volunteer work, character witnesses, and documented gift-giving had built a compelling case for a devoted grandmother being denied access. Our defensive measures were being reframed as evidence of our instability. The 36th week of pregnancy brought new fears. Labor was approaching, and despite our preparations, she'd managed to establish herself at the hospital. We discovered she'd been bringing treats to the maternity ward staff weekly, becoming a beloved fixture. The nurses spoke fondly of the sweet grandmother who just wanted to be part of her grandchild's life. My husband met with hospital security, explaining the situation and providing documentation of the harassment. They promised to restrict her access during delivery, but their sympathy clearly lay with the crying grandmother who'd shown them baby photos and shared her heartbreak. We realized we couldn't count on institutional protection when she'd spent months building relationships there. Victoria suggested a drastic measure, delivering at a different hospital. We toured facilities in neighboring towns, trying to find one where she hadn't established connections. The logistics were complicated, adding distance between us and our support system, but it seemed like our only option for a peaceful delivery. My mother-in-law must have sensed our planning. The gifts escalated, arriving daily now. She sent a professional photographer's information, having already booked and paid for newborn photos. A luxury stroller appeared on our porch. Each item came with cards expressing her love and excitement, creating evidence of a generous grandmother being rebuffed by ungrateful parents. The stress triggered false labor at 37 weeks. As we rushed to the hospital, I panicked about her somehow knowing, somehow being there. The contractions subsided after monitoring, but the incident left us rattled. How could we handle real labor while maintaining hypervigilance against her interference? Our marriage counselor, one of the few professionals who understood the situation, helped us develop a birth plan that included security measures. We created code words, backup plans, and contingencies for various scenarios. What should have been a discussion about pain management and birthing positions became a strategic defense planning session. CB's final intelligence report before my due date was the most disturbing yet. His mother had been meeting with other estranged grandparents, learning from their successes and failures in gaining access. She'd studied case law, understanding exactly what evidence courts found compelling. Her preparation was meticulous, treating our child like a prize to be won through legal maneuvering. The nursery camera alerted us to movement one night. My husband checked the feed to find a package on the windowsill, somehow placed there without triggering the motion sensors on our property. Inside was a hand-knitted blanket and a note, made with love for my grandchild, soon. The implied threat in that single word, soon, kept me awake until dawn. As my due date passed, the waiting became unbearable. Every twinge might be labor starting, meaning our carefully laid plans would be tested. She seemed to know we were close. Her social media posts increased, talking about the anticipation of becoming a grandmother, garnering sympathy from friends who didn't know the full story. My husband took full family leave, refusing to leave me alone as we entered the final stretch. His dedication touched me, but I saw the toll in his exhausted eyes and tense shoulders. She'd managed to steal even these precious final moments of pregnancy, turning what should have been excited preparation into fearful vigilance. The 39th week brought an unexpected ally. A nurse at our chosen hospital recognized my mother-in-law's photo from our security briefing. She'd worked at another hospital where my mother-in-law had volunteered and witnessed similar behavior with another family. Her validation felt like a lifeline. Finally, someone in authority who understood the pattern. Labor began at dawn on a Tuesday, 3 days past my due date. As contractions intensified, my husband executed our plan. He called only our most trusted allies, using code phrases we'd established. We took a circuitous route to the hospital, checking for followers. Even in active labor, I couldn't stop scanning for threats. The hospital security had our photos and protocols ready. They stationed someone near the maternity ward entrance with strict instructions. We'd registered under aliases, keeping our real names off public boards. Every precaution we could think of was in place, but would it be enough? Between contractions, I watched my husband coordinate our defense. He checked doors, verified staff identities, and maintained contact with our security network. What should have been his time to support me emotionally was spent guarding against his mother's intrusion. Another thing she'd stolen from us, the normal birth experience we'd deserved. As transition approached and the pain intensified, my focus narrowed to the immediate task of bringing our child safely into the world. The months of stress, fear, and hypervigilance faded against the primal urgency of labor. But even in those intense moments, part of me remained alert, waiting for her to somehow appear. Our daughter was born at 11:47 p.m., perfect and healthy despite all the stress of pregnancy. As I held her for the first time, tears streaming down my face, I felt both overwhelming love and fierce protectiveness. She was here, she was ours, and I would do anything to keep her safe from the woman who wanted to steal her. My husband's face as he met his daughter broke through months of tension. For a moment, we were just new parents, marveling at the tiny life we'd created. But reality intruded quickly as he checked his phone, ensuring our security network was holding. Even in our most precious moment, she cast a shadow. The nurse who'd recognized my mother-in-law from another hospital stayed past her shift to help protect us. She ensured our names remained off public boards, checked every visitor personally, and created a buffer of safety around our little family. Her kindness in understanding our situation meant more more than she could know. Recovery was a blur of feeding schedules and security checks. We decided against posting any announcements or photos, maintaining total information blackout. Family members who'd proven trustworthy were allowed brief visits under strict protocols. The normal joy of introducing a new baby became a covert operation. On our second night, hospital security intercepted my mother-in-law in the parking garage. She'd been circling the hospital for hours, somehow knowing we were there despite our precautions. They escorted her off the property with warnings about trespassing, but we knew she'd just become more creative in her approaches. The next morning brought a new challenge. My mother-in-law had somehow discovered which room we were in and left a gift basket outside our door. The nurses found it during their rounds and brought it in, thinking it was from family. Inside were expensive baby clothes and a note expressing her love for her granddaughter. My husband immediately took it to security, but the damage was done. She knew where we were. We decided to leave the hospital early. The doctor cleared us after ensuring both baby and I were healthy enough. My husband pulled the car around to a side entrance while security created a distraction at the main exit. We bundled our daughter into her car seat and slipped out unnoticed, feeling like fugitives from our own family. At home, we found more evidence of her presence. Fresh flowers on our doorstep, a package from an expensive baby boutique. Our security cameras showed she'd been there at 3 a.m., carefully avoiding the motion sensors she'd apparently mapped out. The violation of our space while we'd been at our most vulnerable felt intentional and cruel. The timing of her parking garage appearance while they're still in the hospital seems awfully convenient. How exactly did she figure out they were there despite all those false names and security measures? CB called with urgent news. His mother had been meeting with a family court mediator, presenting herself as a concerned grandmother trying to establish a relationship with her grandchild. She'd brought photos of the nursery she'd prepared, receipts for all the gifts we'd refused, and character references from her grandparent support group. The mediator had apparently been sympathetic to her cause. My husband took immediate action. He compiled all our documentation into a comprehensive file showing the pattern of harassment, security footage, threatening texts, witness statements from hospital staff who'd seen her behavior. We needed to be ready if she actually pursued legal channels, though we hoped to avoid that nightmare. The first week home with our daughter should have been magical. Instead, we lived in a state of constant alertness. Every knock at the door made my heart race. When neighbors stopped by with congratulations, I scrutinized them for signs they'd been talking to her. The baby monitor became another security camera to obsessively check. Victoria visited with disturbing intelligence. Her mother had been photographed outside our pediatrician's office, apparently trying to figure out where we'd be taking the baby for checkups. She'd also been asking family members for photos of the baby, playing the victim about being excluded from her granddaughter's life. Some relatives were starting to crack under her manipulation. We changed pediatricians immediately, driving to 1-3 towns over. The extra distance was exhausting with a newborn, but necessary. We registered under privacy protocols, explaining the situation to the staff. They were understanding but clearly thought we were overreacting to family drama. If only they knew the full extent. My mother-in-law escalated her psychological warfare. She started a social media page called Grandmother's Love Denied, where she posted poetry about missing her grandchild. She never used our names, but family members knew exactly who she meant. The comments section filled with sympathy from strangers who had no idea about her true nature. My husband reported the page, but she'd been careful to avoid anything that violated terms of service. Sleep deprivation made everything harder. Between feeding schedules and security concerns, neither of us got more than 2 hours at a time. My husband's paternity leave was running out, and the thought of being alone with the baby terrified me. Not because I couldn't handle motherhood, but because I'd be vulnerable to whatever she planned next. We hired a security consultant who specialized in stalking cases. He reviewed our measures and suggested improvements, including a panic button system and better camera coverage. The cost was astronomical, but my father-in-law quietly contributed, feeling guilty about the monster he'd unknowingly enabled for decades. His support meant everything during those dark days. The consultant also recommended varying our routines unpredictably, never leaving at the same time, taking different routes, shopping at random stores. Living like this was exhausting, but it worked. For 3 weeks, we didn't see any sign of her. I started to hope maybe she'd given up. That hope shattered when CB discovered her new strategy. She'd been building a case that we were isolating the baby from extended family, creating an unhealthy environment. She'd documented every family event we'd missed, every invitation we'd declined. In her narrative, we were the ones damaging the child by denying her a relationship with loving relatives. My husband's job suffered from his distraction and frequent absences. His mother had poisoned several professional relationships by calling his colleagues, expressing concern about his mental state since becoming a father. His boss pulled him aside for a conversation about work-life balance, clearly influenced by whatever she'd told them. We decided to go on the offensive. My husband met with every family member individually, showing them our documentation. Some were shocked by the evidence. Others remained convinced we were overreacting. The family split created by the DNA revelation deepened, with everyone forced to choose sides. During one of these meetings, an aunt revealed something crucial. My mother-in-law had done this before, decades ago, to my husband's father's sister. She'd been driven out of the family after my mother-in-law convinced everyone she was unstable. The aunt had moved across the country and cut all contact. We tracked her down and heard her story, which mirrored ours eerily. Armed with this pattern of behavior, we felt more confident. We weren't crazy or overreacting. This was her established method of eliminating threats to her control. The aunt provided written testimony about her experience, adding to our growing file of evidence. My mother-in-law must have sensed the tide turning. Her tactics became more desperate. She showed up at my husband's work with a lawyer, demanding to discuss grandparent rights. Security removed them, but not before several colleagues witnessed the scene. She'd successfully made our private nightmare publicly visible. That night, we made a difficult decision. We would move, not just to another neighborhood, but out of state. My husband started job hunting in cities where we had no connection directions where she couldn't follow. It meant leaving our support system, but staying had become untenable. Victoria helped us plan the move in secret. We used her address for job applications, had interviews via video call, and made arrangements through encrypted communications. It felt extreme, but every precaution seemed justified given her resourcefulness. My husband received a job offer in a city 8 hours away. The position was actually better than his current one, with understanding employers who appreciated his honesty about the family situation. We began planning our escape like a military operation. We couldn't use traditional movers who might be questioned or bribed. Instead, friends helped us pack in the middle of the night, loading a rental truck in shifts. We left furniture behind rather than risk extended moving time. Our daughter slept through it all, blissfully unaware of the upheaval her arrival had triggered. The hardest part was leaving without saying goodbye to supportive family members. Any information could potentially reach my mother-in-law through the family grapevine. We left letters with Victoria to distribute after we were gone, explaining our decision and promising to reconnect once we were settled and safe. On our last night, I walked through our empty house with our daughter in my arms. This wasn't how I'd imagined starting our family life, but as I looked at her peaceful face, I knew we were making the right choice. She deserved to grow up free from manipulation and psychological warfare. We left at 3 a.m. on a Wednesday, taking a circuitous route that added hours to our journey. My husband checked mirrors constantly while I soothed our daughter in the back seat. Every car that followed us for more than a few exits made our hearts race, but gradually, mile by mile, the tension began to ease. CB called when we were halfway to our destination. His mother had discovered we were gone and was in full meltdown mode. She'd called police claiming we'd kidnapped her grandchild, but they'd dismissed her quickly when she couldn't prove any custodial rights. She'd driven to our empty house and stood in the driveway screaming until neighbors called authorities. We arrived at our new city exhausted but hopeful. The rental house was small but had good security features. We'd chosen it specifically for the fenced yard and distance from main roads. As we carried our daughter across the threshold, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months: peace. The first weeks were adjustment chaos. New doctors, new routines, new everything. But without the constant threat of her presence, we could actually enjoy our baby. I watched my husband relax incrementally, the tension leaving his shoulders as days passed without incident. We maintained strict information security. No social media, no public records updates, everything through lawyers and encrypted channels. Victoria served as our communication hub with safe family members. Through her, we learned my mother-in-law had hired a private investigator to find us, but we'd covered our tracks well. 3 months into our new life, I finally felt safe enough to join a local mothers group. Using only my first name, I began building a new support network. The other mothers had no idea about our past, seeing just another family adjusting to parenthood. The normalcy was healing. My husband thrived in his new position. Without the constant crisis management, he could focus on his career again. His confidence returned as he built new professional relationships untainted by his mother's poison. Watching him become the father he'd always wanted to be, free from her shadow, filled me with joy. Our daughter grew surrounded by love and stability. She learned to smile, then laugh, then crawl in a home where tension didn't permeate every moment. Each milestone felt like a victory, not just for her development, but for our escape from the toxic environment that had threatened to define her early life. Victoria visited after 6 months, using careful counter-surveillance to ensure she wasn't followed. She brought news that my mother-in-law's behavior had escalated to the point where even her most loyal supporters were distancing themselves. Without us as targets, her instability had become impossible to hide. Several family members had reached out through Victoria, apologizing for not believing us sooner. The legal threats never materialized into actual court proceedings. Without knowing our location, she couldn't file anything substantive. Her lawyer had apparently dropped her after realizing the extent of her harassment. Talk about playing chess while everyone else plays checkers. Hiring a security consultant for family drama is next-level problem solving, though calling it family drama is like calling a hurricane slightly breezy weather. She'd alienated the grandparent support groups by becoming too extreme even for them. As our daughter's first birthday approached, I reflected on the journey. We'd lost our home, our community, and proximity to loving family members, but we'd gained something invaluable: freedom from a woman who would have poisoned our daughter's childhood with manipulation and control. We celebrated quietly, just the three of us. A small cake, a few presents, and the gift of peaceful normalcy. As I watched our daughter smash frosting into her hair, giggling with pure joy, I knew every sacrifice had been worth it. She would grow up knowing only healthy love, never experiencing the psychological warfare that had nearly destroyed us. My husband and I had emerged stronger, our bond forged in the fire of shared adversity. We'd learned to trust our instincts, protect our family, and choose peace over proximity to toxicity. Our daughter would know her story someday, but for now, she knew only safety and love. The future stretched before us, full of possibility, unmarred by her grandmother's shadow. We'd build new traditions, create new memories, and raise our daughter to be strong and secure. The price of freedom had been high, but the peace we'd found was priceless. Our little family had won by choosing distance over destruction, anonymity over anxiety. In our new life, we were just another young family in a quiet neighborhood. No drama, no stalking, no psychological warfare, just the beautiful, exhausting normalcy of raising a child in peace. And that was everything we'd fought for. Thanks for wandering through all this with me today. Definitely a journey, huh? Always wild where these conversations go. Until next time, like the video. It helps more than you think.